How will you be empathetic to others? You haven't washed and brushed since 3 days. Learn to be empathetic to your own teeth, then we talk.
To welcome you all to this thought-provoking and amazing session. Medicine is not just about diagnosis and prescription. It's also about stories. Stories of patients, stories of doctors, faith, dilemmas, ethics, and also faith, which is also our theme today. So our first distinguished guest is Professor Devraj Shome sir. Dr. Shome is a super specialist in facial plastic surgery and cosmetic surgery based in Mumbai, and is the co-founder and head of Aesthetic Centers International Private Limited, providing world-class facial plastic surgery and dermatology care across India. On the global stage, he currently serves as the Governor at Large and Treasurer of the Indian chapter of the American College of Surgeons. Beyond surgical excellence, Dr. Shome has contributed significantly to the narrative side of medicine. He is the chief author of the best-selling Bloomsbury book, Dear People, with Love and Care, Your Doctors. We are delighted to have you with us, sir. May I kindly request Dr. Devraj Shome sir to please come forward as we present the momentum.
When we see the world of literature and media and when we see the world of medicine, they are both quite distinct from each other. Medicine is about reality, about evidence, and about how we factor it in our daily lives, whereas literature, on the other hand, is something which takes us on a faraway lands everywhere. So, how did all of you get into the world of literature and media? Because the medical literature and the literature for the masses, both of them are very different from each other. And so, therefore, what attracted you to this field?
Tanaya was asking me the same question now, and the one thing that I came up with was that if lions don't learn how to write, then history will always be written only by the hunters. The world has changed significantly, and today narratives are more important than the treatment that you start giving. The lucky thing was that I was exposed to this because I got trained in the US. I got American board certified, and so as a result of which, in 2005, as I trained in the US, my fellowship preceptor told me, Devraj, you have two choices. You can either do something and document it, but if you don't do it, please at least document it. And that's the way that medicine in India has also gone. Surprisingly and sadly, you're coming into a place where you're learning science in your medical college, but what you do will more often than not be judged in courtrooms. And that's the fact of the medicine that we are living in right now. If we don't know how to communicate, if we don't know how to break up narratives and tell stories, you will be left on the wrong side of biology, which anyways does not support and is not the same in everyone. So therefore, narrative building is very important, and communication is extremely critical as we move into the new frontiers where how you speak and what you say matters as much as what you do.
Doctors are often blamed for outcomes which are beyond their control most of the times. You have also talked about some of the stories in your book, Dear People with Love and Care, Your Doctors. So, and these doctors have to carry the weight of their decisions every day, even if they cannot control it. In such a scenario, how did this perception motivate you to write a book addressing mistrust towards doctors?
Around 30,000 non-doctors read it, and it became an Amazon bestseller. And then our next book came out, which has just been released. It's called Doctors Are Not Murderers. Very provocative title, because I got tired of being told that doctors are murderers, and you will hear that a lot as well, especially if you're into a surgical specialty, especially if you're dealing with life and death decisions. Now, the challenge is biology is complex, and biology is what differentiates, the reason we are here is we didn't like maths, right? Most of us. And we like biology, but biology is not 2 + 2 = 4. The difference between a computer and a human being is, in a computer, you know exactly what the CPU has. So you know what the CPU can do and what the CPU can't do. In a human being, no human being comes with a working manual, none that I have seen at least. And so as a result of which, what happens is, the same paracetamol. How many people have used paracetamol for a headache? Guys, everyone, yeah. It's over the counter in all countries across the world, right? In the US also, paracetamol, Tylenol is over the counter. The same paracetamol, let's say the three of you, right? Paracetamol works in you, stops you from having the headache, your headache gets cured. Paracetamol does not work in you, the same dosage, even though you may be the same weight. And paracetamol actually kills you. How morbid. The problem is you might have had race syndrome, which led to you dying. That's what I mean by biology being unpredictable. Society wants predictable outcomes, but the challenge is the human body doesn't support that. And when you have challenging outcomes which are not supported by biology, that is when the binary is to blame the person that you see in front of the patient, which is the doctor. Doctors are just doing their work in a structurally unjust system. A system where basically right from various reasons why the most talented people may not get medical seats, there are multiple reasons why medicine may have become so expensive. And yet you'll be forced to bear the brunt of something that you didn't design, which is the biology of the body, and the system which doesn't allow you to work in a structurally fair manner. So the combination of that needed us to write these books to transpose complex theories into action and make people understand it. See, it's a viral world. Everyone's a healthcare influencer. And everyone wants to be a healthcare influencer except the guys who are the doctors out here. And so what's happening is the guys who are talking about it have not lived this reality. They don't understand the fact that paracetamol can kill you. The moment paracetamol kills someone, the doctor will be blamed. And it is transposing those sort of lived realities into daily structural realities is why we wanted to write these true stories and make sure people understand and at least appreciate how being a doctor may not be as easy as some other professions.
What is that one aspect of human health and human healing which is more than often misunderstood by the general populace, and how do we address that?
You won't be God every day. Whether you're God or you're a dog will depend on the outcome.
Yes.
And that's the problem. The problem is that you get related and you are being classified, and even your intent is being questioned on the outcome. Even fever, you call it PU, you call it pyrexia of unknown origin because it's unknown, right? But society wants perfect outcomes. And if society wants perfect outcomes in a situation where biology is imperfect and not the same in everyone, society will continue to find the lowest binary, the lowest common denominator in front of him, the doctor, a problem for the system. The challenge is, I came in by the flight and the flight tickets seem to be going up all the time. क्या करूं? Pilot को बजाऊं? क्या करूं? So what should I really do? Should I get into the cockpit and start beating up the pilot? But that's what's happening. If someone is dying of dengue, then people are not turning around and talking about things. So I find this really strange about doctors being God. Bhagwan hote hain doctors. You want God to listen to you. And you want God to carry out all that you want Him to carry out, which is save your family. The moment God doesn't do that, then He's a dog, He's a murderer, He's whatever you can think about it. So from that perspective, I think what needs to be done is we need to start talking about our own fallibility. प्रॉब्लम क्या है, हमने भी बहुत बोला है लोगों को, हमने भी वो फीलिंग दी है. हमारे बहुत सारे डॉक्टर्स ऐसे हैं जो भगवान की तरह बिहेव करते हैं, राइट? If we start behaving like humans and start attributing risk where there's risk, talk about the side effects. जब मुझे कोई पूछता है इसका क्या मतलब है, कोई, I mean, you're injecting a filler, can I go blind? Answer is yes. Boys, answer is yes. Only 40 people may have got blind in the history of 1 billion fillers all across the planet, but 40 did go blind. You may be the 41st, is how I handle it, right? Looking at your own mortality and looking at your own fallibility will make sure that people don't get the ability to treat you like dog or God depending on what the outcome is. Ultimately, doctors are just another human being. We know a little bit more than other people about biology, but neither are we God earlier, nor will we be God anytime in the future. And it's a perfectly great time to be living, because the average life expectancy of a country like India was 32 at the time of independence. Today it's about 69 and more, which is 1.5 times and more. And yet, you will find ministers and so many other people in this country talking about only traditional forms of medicine.
which anyways existed during independence. So what has changed? Really, what we need to do is start communicating better and start building up structural narratives better so people understand what they are dealing with and people can accept that the odds ratio was not only made for mathematics, it's the probabilistic ratio which every doctor and every patient needs to live by.
I think that's not just a problem with people, it's the government, the bureaucrats, they also make you a punching bag. They will not put beds, but they will let you carry the blame. They will not put in the good infrastructure, but they will let you carry the blame. The problem would be with a drug, but then you are the one who will be arrested. So the problem is the absence of that political will becoming a punching bag for bigger votes and gaining sympathy.
Perfectly put. Yesterday, one of my videos went viral, was about 3.7 million views. And what that video said is basically this: आप MBBS पढ़ने के लिए 1 करोड़ रुपए चार्ज करते हो, ज्यादातर मेडिकल कॉलेज सब पॉलिटिशियंस चला रहे हैं, आप 1 करोड़ रुपए चार्ज करते हो, फिर आप MD डर्मेटोलॉजी करवाने के लिए और 5 करोड़ रुपए चार्ज करते हो, द टोटल इज 6 करोड़। 6 करोड़ रुपए स्पेंड करने के बाद वो क्या आपका आके आपकी सेवा करने के लिए आ रहा है? वो उसका ब्याज है 60 लाख रुपए पर ईयर। व्हाट अबाउट दैट? If you were lucky enough to come out of a government college like I did and complete your PG education with 6,000 rupees, I was lucky. That's not true for everyone else. And if the system defines the cause and the effect, if the best students can't become doctors, then you've got no right to expect the best doctors.
So Devraj sir, your reply particularly fascinated me. You stand, having worked with multiple celebrities as well as having produced a lot of content, you stand at this very unique intersection of medicine and media. In your earlier speech, you mentioned about the importance of communicating better. I cannot help but think that must be extremely challenging in a field such as yours, which is so extremely sensationalized and portrayed to the outside world as aesthetic medicine. So, do you think, what do you think about that? What do you have to say about this perception that people have for your opportunity?
I started my career from Tata Memorial Hospital, and I started as a cancer and reconstructive surgeon, and then I went into cosmetic surgery. The reason I went into cosmetic surgery is because I realized that if I kept doing free fibular flaps for jaw cancer, I wouldn't have a back after 5 years. And I decided to correct noses for film stars for 1 millimeter that paid better, right? At the end of the day, what we need to understand is a doctor is a human being. A doctor has the same insecurities as anyone else, okay? Doctors come, I mean, look at this particular room, right? Many of you guys were absolutely completely the best students that ever came out of your 12 standards, right? Before you got into NEET and you ending up in medical college. And if society is today turning around and saying that doctors are not the same quality, what does it say about society at large? If you're the top notchers in society and are not able to satisfy society. So the point is, people will always have expectations. People will always have anger and grief when their expectations are not met. What we need to start doing is we need to try making them understanding mechanistic probability and the odds ratio and telling them in terms of percentages what it really means. Suppose you say it's a 60% chance of success, I actually tell them there's a 40% chance of failure, which means that basically if there's a 40% chance of failure, 4 out of every 10 this particular therapy is going to fail in them. And that's the important part, because what happens is you are talking about success, which is what evidence-based medicine has been about. And if you start talking about success, people are hooked onto the success. They are in their mind thinking about how the 6 times when things will work well in their favor, how things will end up being. But the 1 time in 1,000 when paracetamol does not work and causes the problem that I told you about, all hell's going to break loose. So I think it's a question of estimating risk, making people understand risk, and let them understand that nothing in the world actually comes without risk. It's a question of understanding your risks, understanding your benefits, and then choosing the path that works for you. Whether that's aesthetic medicine, that's cancer treatment, it's the same actually.
Us as doctors or as future doctors or as medicine practitioners, do we need to start carrying caution labels on our forehead that, okay, I'm going to be performing a lap chole, which comes with a 0.3% risk of a bile duct injury, which means that in every 1,000 patients, there are 3 patients who are going to possibly have a bile duct injury. As a doctor, or as somebody who's hopefully going to become a doctor soon, it sounds intimidating to me at this age of having to justify myself before every single procedure that I do. How exactly do I combat that, or what is my perspective supposed to be based on the discussion that we've been having so far? It sounds more dangerous than while playing board wali cheese. This is what I feel right now. So, do I carry around the caution label the moment a patient steps into the OPD? Like you said, at the moment I'm going to inject a filler, there's a 40% risk of you going blind. Is that what I tell
Not
my
40%.
40 people.
40 people
Sorry,
out of a
40,
billion.
my bad.
Unfortunately, you are living in a world or in a medical school where the 2 things they should be teaching you, they are probably still not teaching. One would be marketing, and the second would be medico-legal. And both of those aspects should actually be taught before anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry.
We skipped the medical legal classes. maybe the
Now the challenge is that what decisions you make will be taken in a clinic, but they will be judged in a court of law, right? And judge साहब तय करेंगे आपने सही treatment दी है कि नहीं. So what you need to do is listen to what my fellowship director said, right? Because the US was in this situation 20 years ago as well when I was training in facial plastic surgery. You need to prepare for Judge Saab, unfortunately. So you will have to document and do things. If you have not done things, at least document, right? Unfortunately, that's the lived reality. Now the risk may be different in different specialities of medicine, but as someone who's been an office bearer with the Indian Medical Association, as well as the Association of Medical Consultants, let me tell you, if you are more than 5 or 7 years into practice and do not have a consumer case against your name, you're probably not that well known in practice at this moment. That's the reality of what things are. So you will have to use caution, right? To the extent, so we run a chain of clinics called the Aesthetic Clinics. The Aesthetic Clinics has 9 centers all over India. You won't even be able to see a doctor at any of our clinics without giving a consent for examination. Because there have been instances when opposite gender doctors have been pulled up for removing the clothes to examine a female without necessarily taking a written consent for that. So you do live in a place where you'll have to do risk management. Unfortunately, this also leads to defensive medicine. In the US, a lot of my peers don't take tough cancer cases. They just bat it to the next person because they don't want to take the risk, right? And it's the worst thing for society when doctors start to practice risk management. But that's what society has led surgeons and other doctors to do. So prepare for that life.
It is being shown that how a body is being commodified by the doctors. And if you have read about the book Rita Charon, Narrative Medicine, she talks about how there is a hierarchy. There is still a vertical hierarchy between doctors and patients. There is no horizontal thing. Doctors don't talk to patients nicely. There is so much lack in doctor and patient relationships. So how this hierarchy can be overcome? Like, if there is a professor and there is a doctor, the treatment can be expected a very good treatment. But if there is a patient who is from anywhere, and how this hierarchy will be improved, like, okay, we are writing a good text, okay, there are so much narratives and storytelling still there, but there is so much creative writing missing there, the way we are presenting that particular story. I mean to say, like, how doctors do, like, they document the patient story, they don't write creatively. So how there is such a gap in medical humanities? What do you think? You are all authors, like how you can cover, how you are covering that particular aspect?
I don't think it's only doctors and only patients or doctors. It's both parties. When a patient doesn't do well, do you think a doctor will be happy? Suppose I used to treat child cancers. One of the major reasons that I stopped treating child cancers is because having a child die in your arms was not fun, right? There's a lot of moral injury that you undergo when someone under your care does not benefit from your care. So it's the moral injury
and the inability of us as a society to teach both parties to process that moral injury, which leads to these problems. You see? So the patient may end up feeling कि गया है तो मेरा ही गया है, तुम्हारा क्या गया है? But a painter would also be unhappy if the painting that he was making was not appreciated. This is another human life for whom you took a decision and which did not work. The impact of that moral injury, while society is accusing you, the fact of the matter is you are extremely hard on yourself as well.
Yes.
So that process, that mental injury is what leads to these sort of power dynamics and these sort of problems. So when we talk about dear people with love and care your doctors, it means that people need to understand doctors and doctors need to understand people, because there are no patients without doctors and vice versa, right? So it's a combination of trying to process that fact and trying to get better as a society, get more healed as a society.
I think we are living in a very fast-paced world. Everybody is restless, everybody is impatient, everybody is, just angry to, at a drop of a hat. We see road rage. So similarly, we have rage in the hospitals also.
I just have to add two more points. Basically, I was also thinking about a question about, because I am working on female reproductive health. Basically, I am taking the patients of ovarian cancer and infertility. So I am having a question in mind, like whenever the laws are made, like legal laws about MTPs or anything, okay? So like Foucault talked about the law, okay? That our society doesn't govern with the laws; it works through institutions. So when a patient goes, like maybe a divorcee or maybe unmarried women, but doctors don't talk to that patient nicely, like how, without stigmatizing that particular patient. So this systematic failure, how institution fails in this particular thing. What do you think about this? Because I have heard about the stories of my patients, they talk about, and also in the infertility patients, I was talking about them, that they were telling that the treatment was not correct, that they haven't heard the whole story behind that what they have gone through, and they were giving the treatments without listening the whole stories, like of the patient. So this like doctors were not listening, like they don't have time, just they were writing and no time to them, like giving to the patient.
It's a matter of the systemic failure again.
Yeah.
It's not a problem of the doctors that there's no
It's,
time.
that's what I mean,
it's a
how-
systemic failure. When you're at Tata Memorial Hospital, then you are seeing 120 patients a day. Each one of them come with these big files. If you're expecting me to read that, not AI, I'll have to be superhuman. I'll have to be a supercomputer to read everything and get into it. The system that you're designing is leading to the system failing. And then the person who's in front of you is the doctor. What is this girl? Tomorrow she will go, she will be an intern. Then she will go, she'll become a resident. At that moment, there'll be 120 people who'll come in with various things to her. In the space of 6 hours, how do you expect that to happen? How do you expect this girl to be treating those people, listening to their problems, internalizing and actually emitting empathetic stuff which other people can understand? So I think, you are working on your PhD, perhaps in government circumstances. In the private hospital, this is not how it happens. And I've worked in both. I've worked in a Tata Memorial Hospital. If you want to, it's like this, right? I mean, I hate to bring price into it. But that's the truth. If I want to have a pav bhaji and I want to have it at a roadside thela versus me having it at a 5-star hotel, there is going to be a difference in price. There is nothing which comes free on this planet. So if you want to develop a system, you've got to develop a system which makes sense to everyone out here. The challenge is, on one hand, you want to make the system the cheapest possible. You want to place all the brunt on the residents. And then you want to talk about them being empathetic when they are hardly getting chance to sleep and be empathetic to themselves. So that's also the point that needs to be made. Empathetic injury,
72.
there's data from the Indian Medical Association.
That was an only family.
All of these-
To us, we can do.
All of these guys who are getting into medicine, guys, how many of you signed up? Did they make you sign a consent form to die early? Anyone signed that up? No? But doctors in this country live 10 years lesser than the general population. There's Indian Medical Association data on that.
Also more substance abuse because
So there's
there's no other
something
way to
you
deal
said
with stress.
about
Each
us.
one of us, unfortunately, in your medical school, when you signed up, they should have given you a consent form for dying early. They should have done that. Because you're going to die 10 years earlier than the average population. The empathy that is required from you, that is supposed to come in as part of the fact that you have doctor and you have a white coat, that white coat demands a price, my friends. That white coat gets a moral injury and gets a price which is generated well after clinical duty is over. If you're a screwed up society and you're a screwed up human being, then you'll be a screwed up doctor. Being a doctor does not change where you came from. You came from society.
Yes,
The last time I checked, all of these people who are doctors came from society itself. They didn't land from Mars. So as a result of which, they'll come from one of you. And if Indian society is one which loves to judge people, then how are you going to have better quality doctors coming out? They came from you. And spend more than 3% of your GDP on healthcare. Don't spend peanuts and expect anything better than monkeys. If you spend peanuts, monkeys are all you'll get. You're spending 3% of your GDP on healthcare, down to 2.4% now.
Is it 3% now?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, the point that we are talking about is it's a cause and an effect. You have private medical colleges which charge capitation, you'll get doctors of a particular type. You spend less on healthcare and have less beds available, you'll get doctors of a particular type. Systemic failures need to be addressed systemically. I'm like, what is this indigo crisis about doctors? के साथ तो ये हर रोज हो रहा होता है. Literally at the end of your residency, you don't remember your name. नाम याद नहीं रहता है भाई. What do? You can't even remember your name. How will you be empathetic to others? You haven't washed and brushed since 3 days. Learn to be empathetic to your own teeth, then we'll talk.